This is Cyberpunk 2077. We're doing a comparison. On the left, we have PlayStation 5 Pro. On the right, we have the Nintendo Switch 2. These videos are a ton of work to put together, so be sure to like the videos. Subscribing is great as well. So we're going to be showing off the different visual options and just giving you an idea of how this is running from a perspective of, like, I guess you would say the high-end console versus the new entry into the field. So Cyberpunk is something that I play quite a bit of. I thoroughly enjoyed it across all of the different platforms, and it's quite fascinating to see the changes they've made in order to make this run on the Nintendo Switch 2. So, for context, originally we were showing off the ray tracing mode for the PlayStation 5 Pro. So that was 4K with shadows, and it's using FSR from like 1800p to 1440p is kind of the dynamic range. Not really a way I'd go about playing it, but an option people like, so you can see kind of like the high end for quality versus, regular gameplay. And now, for the rest of the video, you are seeing the performance mode from the PlayStation 5 Pro. So that is a 4K resolution, but it caps off at 1620p at 60 FPS. So quality mode is 30, and then performance is 60. For the Nintendo Switch 2, for the baseline of trying to have a higher frame rate here in order to kind of even things out, so the Nintendo Switch 2 is 1080p, targeting 40 FPS, which is from like 600p. You could also do a 30 FPS target and you get just a little bit more of an internal resolution, but that's kind of what we're going for here. So 40 FPS is a very cool frame rate option that I actually really like seeing on different platforms. I'd love to see a 40 FPS mode arrive on Cyberpunk for the other consoles, because it would be very interesting to get sort of some of the RT effects with a higher frame rate than just 30 FPS, because 40 FPS kind of evenly fits into, like, you need a 120 Hz display in order to do so, but it kind of fits nicely into that experience. So yeah, that's kind of what we got here. I've shown off a variety of action scenes and locations across the world of Cyberpunk 2077, Night City, and Dogtown, which you're seeing kind of right here. So this is really quite interesting because, like, from a combat perspective, the PlayStation 5 Pro handles things much better. This is like the hardest part in the whole game to run when it gets hectic, and at times the Switch 2 for sure turns into a bit of a slideshow. That being said, it's still running and it's still playing, and the fact that a handheld quote-unquote can deliver this sort of an experience is really quite interesting. But I think you'll notice a lot of kind of environmental, like, fidelity decreases, less amounts of NPCs on the streets. The traffic is different too. For instance, in the far distance on the Switch 2, traffic becomes literally like 2D images. It's neat how they've done that, because you won't really notice unless you're specifically looking, but it's really quite fascinating. At the same time, the Switch 2 really does capture the full essence of these environments. I mean, looking here, and there's variations in how the density of NPCs works in this game, but it is a lot quieter and a lot more dead on the Nintendo Switch 2. I mean, in theory, it could be a long weekend and everyone's gone away, but yeah, it's definitely quite noticeable that there are a lot less NPCs. Sometimes when you're driving to traffic and, like, NPCs just kind of vanish, and you can definitely see how they had to make a lot of cutbacks in order to make this work. And then, of course, too, just like, kind of just not as much going on, and then the frame rate not always being stable, but not being too bad. Now, the benefit here, though, I will say in some scenarios, is the usage of NVIDIA's DLSS that Nintendo Switch 2 has. I don't know if my comparison's really giving you the best idea of that element, but like the shimmering of the roads that you get with FSR on other consoles, that is much better handled on the Switch 2. It's it doesn't have that shimmering effect to the degree that you would get on the other platforms. Also, the quality of the models for certain characters is much, much better. So if you're looking at hair, if you're looking at faces, oftentimes, especially in the performance mode, on say the PlayStation 5 Pro, or maybe even the Series X, or even the base PS5, it's a lot fuzzier to look at the characters, like their face is less detailed, the hair is less detailed, whereas on the Switch 2, it actually looks relatively clean, just because DLSS is much, much more effective at actually handling the finite details of worlds and environments. So you do get like a cleaner level of fidelity to a degree in some way on the Nintendo Switch 2, just because the upscaler solution is a lot more impressive than that of FSR, which is, disappointing for the other platforms, but until you get some kind of upscaler on those, that's kind of the best we have, right? Because they're AMD versus, well, Nintendo Switch 2's capability of NVIDIA with DLSS, which is going to be fantastic and fascinating to watch over time. But I'll leave you with some non-commentary gameplay.
Espinete!